The biggest mistakes people make when they making their basement or converting their basement into an apartment. Welcome to Real Estate Wisdom Podcast. I'm your host, Vishal Kapoor, and today we're going to talk about this topic with mortgage rates soaring and housing cost at an all-time high. Many homeowners are looking to their basements as potential source of extra income, which makes sense, right? But before you grab that sledgehammer, let's break down some common pitfalls to avoid. And I see this every other day. A lot of listings coming out. A basement apartment is available. And when you go and look for some of your clients, or you been called to ask for what I think about their basement, and I look into that and said, hey, you probably have done some homework before thinking about renovating basement. I know like a lot of people want to save money and they think, well, it's just a basement apartment, it's just a basement. And I can go with like a cheap contractor, but later what happens, you pay more than what you have done. So first of all, the biggest mistakes people do is ignoring their legal requirements. And that is one of the most critical errors homeowners make in overlooking the legal aspects of basement conversions. Before you start any work, it is essential to check with your local city and county planning departments for regulations. Ensure your plans comply with the safety codes and agrees with the requirements, basically. And failing to address these legal considerations could result in hefty fines or even being forced to undo your renovations. First of all, understand the zoning laws, occupancy limits, and parking requirements. And these requirements, you can go in any town website and you can look into that, what's required, what's not required, and you can go through it. And if you hire a good contractor, they work with town to get permit for you. And in that way, you're not going to feel any hassle later, right? I know we want to do in a small space, we want to make a 2-bedroom. Sometimes we want to make an extra washroom or kitchen. And sometimes it's, what do you think is right? It's what legally is possible. And a lot of people even think it's not required to be a legal basement because you fear of your taxes get higher. Well, we talk about that later. But what I think is what you have to do is if you do it the right way, you always end up good, right? Other thing which also people do is many homeowners dive into basement conversion without a realistic budget. Remember, the average cost to convert a basement into an apartment ranges from anywhere from $50,000 to $150,000 or even $200,000. But average is I will say 150, $120,000 for 3,000 square feet house. But if you have a smaller house, it will go up to 75, 80,000. That's what coming in Oakville. In some areas, it can be the 50,000. So depending upon the area, cost of the material, cost of labor, and what kind of design you want to do. So it all adds up. For example, if you're doing the separate entrance, that ranges from anything between $10,000 to $12,000 itself. So factor also the unexpected expenses for things like waterproofing and structural issues, because you have to look into that, right? The windows need to be ingress, do they need to be built bigger? Is that the possibility of doing that? And that adds up your cost, right? Consider ongoing costs like increased property taxes and insurance. This is the biggest one people ignore, that how much taxes can increase or insurance can increase. And while basement apartment can generate income, it's crucial to calculate your return on investment carefully. So I will say don't overdo it, but at the same time, you do it in such a way that any future buyer, when they look into that, not necessarily that they want to rent it out for rent, maybe more because the things are changing now, but at the same time, you make the basement apartment in such a way that if the single family is using it, they can use it conveniently. So it doesn't feel like, it's, out of the league. Like what looks like upstairs, basement is totally different, depending upon the choices as well. But I will say, make it in such a way that it appeal masses, not just to individual family. Mistake number 3, neglecting moisture and ventilation issues. Oh, tell me about it. So many times, go to the houses and they build their basement, but they didn't take care of the ventilation, right? Basements are prone to moisture problems, which can lead to mold and structural damage if not addressed properly. So don't forget to invest in waterproofing and drainage systems. Install adequate ventilation to prevent humidity buildup. Use moisture-resistant materials for floorings and walls. And that's when we look into, most of the time we're looking into the cost. But we're not looking into, what problem it can cause. Right? So be mindful of that. Spending a little bit more in the starting will save you in the long run. It will last longer and it'll give you less hassle. Because the last thing you want is like more hassle in coming years, right? If something didn't last maybe for 2 years or 3 years, then you have to invest it again, right? You have to spend money again. So in my opinion, look at carefully, see what can last for longer, less maintenance, and it's going to stay and looks beautiful as well, right? So you don't want to put like something ugly, which you hate it. But at the same time, you have to look into longevity of that material which you're putting in your basement. Other common mistakes which I see in most of the basement design and everything is poor space planning. So maximizing space in a basement apartment is crucial. But many renovators make the mistake of cramming too much into a limited area. So avoid that cramming. Like, you want everything in that basement? Not necessarily. Maybe your basement is not designed the same way your friend or your neighbor have done it. You might be different. So plan it accordingly. And to avoid this, create a thoughtful layout that balances functionality and comfort. Right? Too big a kitchen, too small living space. Sometimes it happens, too big closet or small closet or washroom is cramped. And that can definitely create an issue, and it might not be rentable, or people living over there, they might not stay for long. And so create a thoughtful layout that balances functionality and comfort, ensures there's adequate storage space. Everybody needs storage, right? Consider multi-purpose furniture to maximize usability. That's the big one as well. So it's not like, I already have the extra couch sitting upstairs, I will put it down there and it'll be fine. It's not be fine. Like, if, especially when you renting out the furnished basement apartment. So be mindful. Don't buy like a huge furniture. I will say. Depending upon your size of your basement as well. But even then, buy something which is convertible. Like if you, for example, if you have a big basement, you buy the furniture that it can be expandable, or you can convert it. For example, chairs which can convert into recliner, or chairs which can become like a bar stool, or table, which those sectional tables come in, which go underneath one another, right? So in that way, you can save space. And more space always look good. When it's nobody like the cramped space. I don't know about you. That's me. I can't live in a cramped space. So open space is important. So plan accordingly. The other mistakes people do is skimping on lighting. Basement often lack natural light, and which can make them feel dark and uninviting. To create a bright, welcoming space, what you have to do is install ample artificial light, including task and ambient options. Ambient light can give you a lot of great feeling. Think about that. If you have to live in the basement for some reason, and especially the weather like in Canada, which a lot of time is cloudy, and especially in winter is gloomy, you can't live in that kind of space. You will feel depressed. And also, it's not good for your health either. So ample lighting is necessary. Consider adding enlarging windows where possible, to get as much a natural light you can get. That will be great. But again, depending upon the design or the some of time limitations you have, that you might not able to do that. But if it's possible, do it. Use light colors for walls and flooring to reflect light. That's the another good one. I like dark red because that's the accent wall I want. Great to have the accent wall, but basement might not be the right place to do so. Keep the color light. In that way, it's brighten up. Flooring, keep it light so it can reflect the light. So in that way, you able to see everything. And also a light color, it's easier to clean. Darker colors, you can see the dust and everything more promptly. Promptly. But in this case, it's always keep it clean, but at the same time, keep it light. So in that way, you can feel that space bigger as well. Another common one, a lot of people have done the lighting and they look into windows and all that kind of stuff. One very uncommon thing which people don't do it is and it's overlooking it a sound insulation. Especially when you're renting out your apartment. You don't want to hear the noise from your basement coming upstairs, right? Maybe they have kids. Maybe somebody is working from home and they're having the office calls. You don't want to hear upstairs, do you? So install proper sound insulation in walls and ceilings. Consider using sound dampening flooring materials. Insulate pipes and ductwork to reduce noise transmission. In that way, you can reduce the noise so you can have uninterrupted conversation. And also, when you're working upstairs, for example, and most people have the kitchen or living space where they spend most of their time, you don't want to listen in the basement either, right? Or even you're not making an apartment, if using for yourself and you make a media room, for example, you definitely don't want to hear when your wife is sleeping upstairs and you're making noise, or your kids playing games and you don't want to hear upstairs. So soundproofing, look for those things, right? Proper sound insulation, consider using sound damping flooring materials and insulate pipes and ductwork to reduce noise transmission. I just repeated this one just to make sure that you get the gist. Mistake number 7, a lot of people do, is cutting corners on finishes. And this, drive me sometimes crazy, that when you're making a basement, I can't get out of my head. One of the house, it was a custom built actually in South Oakville, and they make a beautiful basement. Everything was looking great, but when I look closely, their finishes were, below standard. They cut corners. And I say, you're spending this is the house which is going to sell for more than 2.5 to 3 million. And the basement which you did is you cut corners. It doesn't make sense. People say, oh, this is just a basement. It's just a corner. It's everything, in effort to save money, some owners offer low quality finishes. However, this can lead to higher maintenance cost in the long run. For example, if your edges are not right, like your baseboard, and there's a gap between baseboard and your flooring, when you're doing a cleaning or even the dust, it can go there and would accumulate, and it's going to damage and also create a mold, moisture, and other things. So it will be also definitely the higher maintenance cost in the long run. It will be difficulty in attracting on retaining tenants, because when somebody is living over there, they're going to notice that every single day, and they're going to say, "Hey, why I'm paying this much for this basement?" And even the whole house is great, but that particular thing is bothering me. So you will have a difficulty in retaining, or even overall getting really somebody is desperate and they cannot do it, they will do it. But first of all, you're not going to the money which you deserve for rent, and the other thing is it will not attract good tenants. Other thing is going to, when you're cutting corners, is potential hazards, safety hazards if materials aren't up to code. So don't just buy it go and say, hey, that was material which I bought it from the yard or something and I can use it. Even using that, making sure that material is not hazardous, right? So invest in durable, high quality material that will stand the test of time, appeal to potential renters. Mistake number 8, failing to consider long-term implications. We always look for it's good for now, we'll look into later. And many homeowners don't think through the long-term consequences of converting their basement into a rental unit. So consider these things. The impact on your home's resale value. Just having a finished basement is not going to increase your value. How your basement is renovated or how it's designed make a big difference. If the basement is designed in such a way that cannot be used fully, potentially, what's going to happen is people, you're not able to sell your house on the timely manner. The only time you can sell that house, when the market is crazy and there's nothing available and people even buying anything. So your willingness to be landlord for the foreseeable future also have the a long-term consideration. If you think you're willing to be a landlord for the foreseeable future, make sure you do that, all the all the things above mentions, like I did mention before. Do that, and I'm pretty sure you're going to be happy. Also, potential changes in local regulations or market conditions. That's you have to and I already talked about that. When everything is going all right, then you have no problem selling anything. But when the market is tight, then definitely you're going to run those issues, and your property value is not going to increase because you just have the finished basement. So last thing I will say, remember, while a basement apartment can be a great source of income, it's also a significant commitment. So that's wrapped up our discussion in the biggest mistake to avoid when converting your basement into an apartment. By steering clear of these pitfalls, you will be well on your way to creating a successful and profitable rental space. I keep on getting the feedback from you guys, and I really appreciate that. And some of the topics which is coming out is just what I see day to day, what people asking in group chats, their issues. And most common issues are always having a leak happening. My AC is not working properly. My heat pump is not working properly. And my electricity is not working properly. And most of these problems can be avoided if you know what to do. Regular maintenance is the key. And the other thing is, if you're not aware of, you can't do it. So keep listening to podcasts like Real Estate Wisdom Podcast to educate you. So in that way, you can make an informed decision. But information and knowledge is not enough until you use them efficiently on a daily basis. Thank you for watching. Thank you for showing your love. And if you like, please do share and subscribe and recommend this podcast to other people who can benefit from. Thank you to all. Bye for now. Item in this podcast is for informational purpose only and should not be considered as financial or investment advice. Consult with your professional before making any real estate decisions.